welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my July wrap-up. I finished 5 books in the month of July and I can't wait to dive in to my little wrap-ups and my reviews and let you guys know what I read for the month of July. The first book that I finished in the month of July is called Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. This is actually part of a series called The Lunar Chronicles. The very first book in this series is called Cinder, and then it goes from there to like Scarlet, Cress, Winter, and then there's 2 novellas, Fairest and Stars Above, that can be kind of put in between the main series or even after you're done reading the series. So these are books that you don't necessarily need to read. In the Lunar Chronicles series, they're like add-ons pretty much, if you want to know more about the characters or whatever. So Stars Above is one I've read the entire series, all of them so far, and I've rated them like all 5 stars on Goodreads. Fantastic series. They're a sci-fi series with fantastical fairy tale retelling is pretty much what it is. So the first one is a spin-off of Cinderella, and then the next one is like Red Riding Hood, and then you've got Rapunzel, and then Winter, of course, number 4 is Snow White. Fairest, which is a novella, talks about the background of the evil queen, and then Stars Above has 9 different stories in here, each from the characters that are already in the main series, so it's giving you like their background stories of how did they come about, how did they end up where they were before you started reading the actual books in the series. I was actually quite surprised how much I like this one because I've never been one for novellas for in between. It's like I like to just read the series and keep it there, but I had fallen in love with this series so well that I decided to just dive into this one. And I'm actually glad I did because it kind of gives you even a little aftermath after the whole series is done of how the characters are afterwards. And it was cute and adorable and I loved it. I'm rating this a good 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I will link my Goodreads channel down below. I decided that from here on out, whenever I do a review, whether it's on YouTube or Goodreads or whatever, I'm gonna rate these books the way I would see if it was like a movie. That way people can understand, like, is this a book that my daughter who's in high school or in middle school or elementary school can read, or is this a book that my son can read that, you know, he can read to his kids, however you look at it, or if it's more of an adult-driven book, but you never know going into some books, you might get pleasantly surprised. There's swearing or there's sexual content that you weren't thinking there would be in a series. Anyways, so I've decided to start rating books with within a movie rating system. I'm rating this a PG. It is hilarious, it's cute. The whole series is PG. It's something that your elementary school kids can read, it's adults can read. It's fantastic. Pick it up. I dare you. The second book that I finished in the month of July is called Where Men Win Glory by Jon Krakauer. This is an odyssey of Pat Tillman, who was a pretty well-known NFL player back in the early 2000s, late 1999, that sort of era. And then he decides, after being a multi-millionaire NFL player for the Cardinals, he goes into the Army because after what happened with 2001 and 9/11 and our terrorist situations, Pat Tillman decides he wants to go get the bad guys. He doesn't need a multi-million-dollar contract through the NFL to make him feel like more of a man. He decides he wants to go into the Army. I loved the first half of this book, and then the second half was a little bit disappointing for me. I don't know how to word this without sounding too conservative or... Anyways, I love the background of Pat Tillman and how he became who he was, whether it was through high school and then college, and then of course through his NFL career, and then through Afghanistan tour and that entire scenario. I liked learning about him. I liked learning the people and his family that were around him and supported him. Sorry, there's a really bad glare on this book. But I felt like second half of the book that got more into like his tour through Afghanistan and Iraq was really kind of depleting the Bush administration. And don't get me wrong, the Bush administration definitely completely effed up on trying to cover up the whole Pat Tillman and Shot by Friendly Fire and stuff like that. I understand where people are mad. But then I kind of also understand why maybe the Bush administration did what they did. I'm not saying it was right or it was wrong, but I felt like this book went into a totally, completely different scenario where even Pat Tillman didn't want what the Bush administration was doing, where you were going after the bad guys in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it was just like to the point where you're like, well, then why is he even a ranger if he doesn't believe in anything that the Bush administration is doing? I don't know. There was a lot of things that just didn't add up well for me in this book. I was trying to look at it from both perspectives of like his family, himself, the United States, of like American people. We were going through and mourning at the time through the whole terrorism of 9/11, and then how Pat Tillman kind of evolved into this significant person that, you know, was famous and then decided to go into the army, and then he was shot by friendly fire, and how the Bush administration tried to cover it up, But there's a lot of things in this book that just didn't mesh well for me or didn't make any sense. And there were some points that I finally, like, I went from here on this book to suddenly just going downhill because it felt like they were just smearing the whole Bush administration. But at the time, we were in a very critical point in America. And Bush had a lot of things on his plate and things that he had to decide. Were they right? Were they wrong? I don't know. It's up to everyone's opinion, I guess. So I'm rating this a 3 because I really did enjoy the first part, but the second part kind of fell flat for me and a little disappointing, and I don't know how else to word it. I guess that's how I'm just gonna leave it as. And then I'm also rating this a PG-13 book. And the reason is because there is quite a bit of swearing, which, hello, if you're in the army and you're dealing with bad guys, there's gonna be a lot of swearing. And then of course, there is some gory details and, you know, Afghanistan and war-torn scenarios that are a little bit gory, but they're, you know, true events. So if you're a younger person wanting to read this, hallelujah, go for it, but do be warned that there is a lot of swearing in it and some gory details. But other than that, it was a pretty good book. It was average. It was okay. The third book that I finished in the month of July is Golden Boy by Abigail Tartolin. I finished this during Booktubeathon, and I was actually pleasantly surprised how much I loved this book. I was a little hesitant going into it at first because the main character in this is a young boy who's in high school, and he's intersex, which means he was born with female and male parts. And so there was a lot of dialogue as to, like, is he bisexual? Does he identify more as male? Does he identify more as female? And I was a little worried that it would maybe try to romanticize this whole stigma right now of, you know, it's such a big deal with the LGBT community. It's getting much more traction, more people are accepting it, and that sort of stuff. But this book didn't romanticize anything. The struggles this boy deals with, he lives in a town where everybody knows everybody. His parents are very well known, like lawyers and political figures in their community. And so Max has always been known as the golden boy. He's smart, he's adorable, he's cute, all the girls love him, he plays football. He's a good kid, he doesn't do anything bad. And something very traumatic happens to him in the beginning of this book. Trigger warning, there is rape in here and it is very detailed. So to be warned, I'm rating this book rated R because it does have a lot of sexual content in it, a lot of grown-up dialogue, some very sexual detailed things, as well as quite a bit of swearing. Rated R, just letting you know. But other than that, the plot, the character building, everything was phenomenal. I fell in love with Max and my heart broke for him, my heart broke for his family. I just wanted to reach through the book and give Max a great big hug. The struggles that he has to deal with, not only as a hormonal teenager, but also having this secret that his parents have kind of covered up, being an intersexed person, and then his parents being well known, and then they're just afraid that this secret of Max's is gonna get out and ruin his parents' careers and his, you know, his persona in the community. And so it deals with his struggles as just not only just a boy in high school, but also with friends and his peers and his family members. And oh, it's so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. Like, if you watch my Booktubeathon wrap up, my video before this, I talk a little bit about this, so I'm repeating myself terribly here. But at the same time, I actually teared up and cried, and I really don't cry in books. I could probably count on my hand 5 books in the many, many years that I have been reading that I've actually teared up and cried and gotten emotional. And this one really pulled on my heartstrings, and I recommend this book. It's fantastic. Abigail, you're amazing at writing, and I really did enjoy this a lot more than I thought I was going to. 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Check out my review if you want through my Goodreads channel, and it's a standalone novel, which I also liked, so you're done and over with, but I loved it. Such a good book. The 4th book that I finished for the month of July, and I also finished this through Booktubeathon, is Crucial Conversations. This is a self-help book. If you watched my YouTube channel from before on my YouTube or my Booktubeathon wrap-up, you'll know that I liked it, but I didn't like it. I'm rating this probably, the more I think about it, I rated it a 3 on Goodreads, but I'm gonna say more of like a 2.5. The first part of this book was phenomenal. It was teaching you how to walk through crucial conversations, whether it's with your spouse, your kids, your boss, your coworker, whatever it is. Everyone has conversations that are gonna get a little heated or a little personal to the point where, you know, you're a little uncomfortable or you're not sure how to approach something. And this kind of walks you through on how to deal with those type of difficult situations or conversations with certain type of people, and then how to become aware of, you know, what to do in those kind of scenarios. And the first half I actually learned quite a bit, and it spoke to me. But then the second half, it felt like it was very redundant and it was repeating itself. And then the dialogue just got very like blah, 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 blah. I don't know. 2.5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and definitely rating this a G rated book because it's a self-help book, so there's nothing wrong in here or grown up. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not a big self-help book kind of person, so that's just what I'm rating it. The 5th book that I finished was at the very end of July. I tried finishing this for Booktubeathon, but unfortunately I still had a good 4 or 5 hours left on my audiobook for this by the time BookTube ended, so I got to listen to it through the rest of the end of July, which was like July 31st, and I seriously ended it later that night. I originally was gonna just give it 4 out of 5, but I'm saying like 4.5. I think I'm gonna raise the bar a little bit. This is a YA sci-fi dystopian series. There's 3 in this series. Red Rising is book number 1. This is by Pierce Brown, and it was great. Even the audiobook was fantastic. It was pretty long and lengthy, but the guy that narrates it has got a very Scottish accent, and I could listen to him all day long. Like, oh my gosh, amazing. This is a series that is set on Mars, pretty much, and the main character, Darrow, he is in a society where he is the lowest of the lows. So he is like your, you know, sweat-breaking, back-breaking slave worker. He works in dirty conditions. His entire town, or whatever, lives in poverty. There's like no color within this world, seriously. But this entire society they live in is technically color-coded. So whatever you're born into gives you a color system. So golds are like your high society. They rule, they dictate, they're the politicians, that sort of stuff. And then it gradually goes down, and each color of society depicts on the type of scenario you're going to be living in. Darrow is a red, so he's the lowest of the lows. He is, you know, works the minefields pretty much. He learns that this entire society and these politicians have been deceiving him and his family and everyone that he works and lives with. Or there's more to their society than what they've been told or what they believe in and how they've been living. There's actually a whole nother society that they didn't know even existed. And Darrow takes it upon himself to pretty much try to have revenge and take out the bad guys, aka the golds, you know. you're high society people. I can't wait to get into the second book. This one was phenomenal. Phenomenal. It was a little hard towards the middle of the book. There was so much world building that I kind of had to like push pause on Audible and like rewind it, pause, rewind it, and keep listening, because there was just so much world building, so much character building in this that I didn't want to miss anything. And I felt like if I really wasn't really in just digesting all of it, that I was gonna miss something and it would be important, and then I'd be kind of lost towards the end. But other than that, I'm rating this a good 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm also rating this as PG-13. There is quite a bit of swearing in this, especially towards the end during heated arguments and situations. There is some grown-up dialogue, but other than that, there's no sexual content in any sense. But quite a bit of swearing and a little bit of gory details. There's a lot of killings, kind of a Hunger Games type of feel to this book. Highly recommend it. I can't wait to get into the second book, and we'll go from there. So thank you guys so much for joining me on my channel today for my July wrap up. I will leave a ton of links down below on where you can get these books or where you can find them, as well as the rating system that I have given them. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter if you want to find me there. I'd love to see your smiling faces. Subscribe and like to my channel, please. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.